Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. On behalf of SCAPE team, today I will be presenting this research loading dose about the use of RedCap. We will cover two aspects of RedCap: building a data collection sheet using RedCap, and also entering the information or the data that we have into the built data collection sheet. So if you have a RedCap access, I believe a lot of us have through their institution. If you don't have it, check if your institution has it or not, because it's not available as an individual access. You could get it through your institution. Once you have the RedCap access and you enter your username and the password, you will have this toolbar at the top. You will start by adding a project. Let's call this project as test 3, just an example. We will go over the steps of building the data collection sheet together. We want it for research. I can start by including the information. This is based on my institution request. This page might vary from an institution to another. So I'll fill in the request, the required information, and then I will have this page as a startup for my project. So I'll have several projects. This is the project that I just started, which we called test 2. So how do I start the data collection sheet, or the instrument as RedCap calls it? So from here, we will have the edit instrument. We click on it, and then I will have my first instrument. If we click on it, we will have the record ID, and this is a built-in option. You can't change it. So what happens is RedCap gives an ID number for each patient that you're collecting, or each participant. This is nothing that you can change or edit or do anything about it. So we leave it as is, and then we start building our instrument that we have in here. So let's say that we have in here, what we have in here is actually, we want to have the name of the data collector. This is what we usually start. So you will click on add field from here, and then you will have several types of field in here. So you will click on text box. Since we want a name, it's only short text. So we will add in here name of the data collector. And then in here, we will have the variable that we will have it in the code book. So in coding, we usually want it short, and we want to have things that we are able to analyze later on. So we will have here just collector. In here, we can have validation if we have numbers or dates, as we're going to do later on. We can check if we want it yes or no, if required or not, and if it's an identifier or not. And by identifier, we're referring to the patient, because we want to do de-identification later on to remove any patient-related information. So I will put yes, we will have here, so the collector can add their name. And then let's say we're talking about the patient later on. So we will have the patient date of birth. So in here, we will have date of birth. Briefly, the variable, this is the code that we will have in the code book. For that, we will need validation, because this is a number. Then we will have a date, month, year. And then let's say that the data that we want to collect is between January 1st, 2019 until January 1st, 2020. So we want to make sure that this serves as a reminder for the data collector. If they collect beyond this dates, it will not allow them. And then we will have 1/1/2022. So if they enter any date that is beyond this, before or after, they will not be allowed, because this gives you the range of dates that you have. And then we will click save. Okay, so this is for the date of birth. Let's give another example for dates. So let's say we want the date of admission. Then we will have add a field, and then date of admission. We will have the code as DOA, date of admission. We need also validation. So date, month, year. let's say maybe the limit that we had was more applicable for the date of admission rather than date of birth. Let's have it in here, same thing. 01/01 2018. Then we have 01/01 2022. We can remove the limitations. We can have nothing. It's not necessarily is not required. We can have it as an option. So let's keep it with the date of admission rather than the date of birth. Then we want to have also the date of discharge. So we'll apply again. So you add a field, and then when you it will RedCap will the default will use the field type that you used from before. So as we can see, it will immediately give me the short the text box, but we can also choose out of the list that we have. So text box, and we will have here date of discharge. So here we will call it DOD. Yes, we want to validate it through date, month, year. If we still want it within the window, if we have a follow-up window, we can have that for the, or we can leave it empty, as I mentioned. And then we will, we want to calculate the hospital length of stay. So if we want to do that, we need the date of admission and the date of discharge. So we're kind of building an equation within the data collection sheet that will automatically be calculated. So we go into add field, and this time we will choose calculated field. And when you choose the calculated field, you should be aware about the names or the codes that we have built as a variable for the date of admission and date of discharge. So in this instant, we will have the hospital length of stay, which we usually call LOS. And then in here, we can add the equation. So what is the equation? If we actually, let's just defer this. If we have any of the, we just Googled RedCap calculated field, we can find several calculations or several equations that we could use. Let's say here, date calculation. So in here, we will have a date calculation. It will give me several suggestions depending if I want to use the date, here date difference, date 1. But in here, the codes that they have is date 1 and date 2. But in mine, I'll have date of admission and date of discharge. So if I just used or copied the calculation equation from here, I go back and then I add the calculated field, and I'll have here hospital length of stay. LOS, and then I type in my equation. I use the codes that I have, date of the discharge and date of admission, and then I use days because the unit is days, and then I want it false. And here I have the arrangement, which I have day, month, year. If the equation, anything is wrong with the equation, you will see that the calculation will be no longer valid. Let's say we did not use the day of a, as you can see here, you see there is an error. So it shows you that there is something, but once you have everything set and ready, you will have it valid to give you an idea that you're doing or adding the right calculation equation. So you want to have it as required or not, because it's not something to be filled. You don't really need it. But you can see that it's kind of frozen, and in here you can view the equation that we use. So this is one type of field. So let's try to use the calculation field again to calculate the BMI. So we know that for BMI, we need the weight and the height. So let's add weight. You have to remember what did we use as a coding for it. And we don't want the calculating field at this time. We want to add the data, which is the weight, but we want to validate it as a number. So, and here sometimes it's good to have as a field note the unit that we have. So this one we want it to be in a kg. So let's say we are including only adults. We know that it cannot be the minimum 10, and we don't want to include obese patients, so we don't want, let's say, more than 120 kg, for example. Or you can leave it empty, it's up to you. This serves as a reminder to the data collector. And then we want to have the height. So in here, we will have HT as in height. The validation, it is a number, and we want to make sure that we are using the same unit if we have multiple data collectors. So in here, we will have height and centimeter. Now we want to see if we want to calculate the BMI, what could we, how could we do that? So if we go in here or any calculation equation and you just look for BMI, you can see that this is the equation that is used for the weight for the BMI calculation. However, our codes are not the same. We're not using the same code for height. So we go back and we add calculated field. And then in here we will have BMI. We will also label it as BMI. When we have the equation, in here you will see that it will give me wrong syntax because we're not using the same code that we have. So we've changed this to height, as we call it HT. And now it's valid. And it will be automatically calculated as a calculated field that we have. We can also have other options or other types of field. If we want to say, let's say we want to have gender. So we want a single answer. You can see that you have multiple choice, drop down list, or radio button. And we will see the difference between them. So let's say gender. And in the label, we will have it as sex. Yes, we want it required. So what are the choices? You want to have male or female. Even if you don't number them, you have one as male or two as female, RedCap will automatically do that for you and make sure that this is what you have in mind. So if we put yes, then this is the difference between if we had it as a drop-down menu and if we had it as a radio button. Okay, so this is the difference. Let's say we choose to have it as a drop-down menu, as an example. So how about if we want it as a radio button? So let's say we want to say, does the patient have any past medical history? So we want it to be a yes, no question. So, or true or false. So we can choose from here the type, yes or no. The variable will be past medical history, YN, which is yes or no. And then it automatically give you the choices. Yes, we want it required. So let's say if the patient, if we choose yes, we want to have a list of drop of past medical history that the collector can choose from. So we will go into checkbox because the patient could have several past medical comorbidities, not only one disease. So we will have here past medical history, for example. We will call it PMH list. And then we will have a set of choices, let's say diabetes, hypertension, or others. So I have a ready set that I had from the data collection sheet that I built in Word first, because I really encourage you that you have a Word document of the data collection sheet before putting it into RedCap to know what are the things that you want to add. So you will have diabetes, hypertension, heart failure, atherosclerotic disease, and all of that here as a list. And even if you don't number them, it will number them for you immediately. And you can see that you can choose several diseases from here. So we want this list to occur only if they click yes for medical history. So how do we do that? We call it branching. From here, you can see branching logic. So you go in there, and then you go to the all list, and you look at past medical history, yes. And if you have several options, like let's say if yes or no, we want to choose it. If you have several options, you want to make sure that you're choosing any of below is true. Because if all of below is true, you have to click yes and no at the same time for this branching to occur. But here we have only one option. If yes, then it will show that.
Let's repeat that. Let's say here other. We want the data collector to inform us and let us know about the others past medical history. So we will here have other past medical history or other image. This should be a text box. We will have a text box. They will fill it. So we put OK, and then after that we do the branching. We go into the options that we have, the branching, and then we click here on past medical history other. So once the data collector will check other, then this option will appear. So this is simply most of the fields that we have. The other field that we did not cover is the note, the text box. If you want if you want to have an extensive, not a short text like comments, for example, then you will have here, call it as comments, and instead of in the field type, you will choose text box paragraph text. And then you will have it here as a comment, and you can see that this is larger than the text box, the short one, where you have only like a line to write. So in here, let's say that we have the data collection sheet ready. This is exactly what I had in mind. This is the time where I want to start collecting the data. So how do I do that? I go into add records in here, and then I click add a new record. And in here, you will start seeing the page or the data collection sheet from the collector perspective, not the builder perspective. So in here, let's say I want to add my name as the data collector, the patient date of birth. Let's say I have, it is 1/1/20 or 1999. It allows that. The date of admission, let's put 1/1/2017, which it's beyond, then it will give you a notification that this is not allowed because we had a minimum and a maximum. So we have 2/18, and then the patient discharged after a month. So 2018. So here it calculated for you the hospital length of stay immediately. How about the weight? Let's say the weight is 60 and the height is 160. It will immediately collect the BMI for you using this equation. If we chose that this is a male, and then this patient, yes, has a past medical history, you will see immediately it will show up, but if no, it will disappear because of the branching. Let's say the patient has heart failure, atherosclerotic disease, and other. Now you will have the other option appearing as part of the branching, and you will fill it down. And after you finish, you label the patient as complete, and then save and stay. And then you want to go, if you want to add another record, you go to the same way. So let's say that you collected several patients and you want to look at the data. Where can I find the results? You go into the toolbar that you have on the left side, and you go to the data export. And in here, you can view it even as part of state. It will give you the descriptive. Or if you want to export it, it gives you options of exporting Excel with label or without, SAS and R, depending on the statistical analysis tool that you would be using. So this is, in a nutshell, is the simple way of creating a data collection sheet in RedCap and how to use it and fill it. There is another use of RedCap if you want to use it as a survey. Maybe I will cover that in another video later on, but this is the way that we use it for creating a data collection sheet. So I hope I made it simple and easy. Thank you so much for your time. With that, I would like to conclude our video and stop the recording. Thank you so much.